Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everyday Enchantment. I am your host, Stacey Andon, and I'm always excited to be here. Probably if you've been listening to the episode, you're like, wow, is Stacey always this happy? Actually, generally, this is my standard fare. Joy and delight and enchantment. And I also absolutely have moments where I'm teary eyed, frustrated, angry, and all those things. So I have a feeling that'll be an episode in the future to talk about happiness versus, just being real human, because I don't think us being happy is the end goal of our lives. So, anyway, now that I've digressed into another topic at the beginning of this episode, I wanted to talk about a story that everybody asks me about all the time. So I thought it'd be great if it would live in the podcast library. And I wanted to relate to animal guides. So I very much feel connected to the animals around me. I felt drawn to them since I was a little on this planet. Just they seem to kind of want to come closer to me rather than run away. And I am drawn to them as well too. And so it's just been this kind of magical relationship where I don't know, it doesn't matter unless you are a snake or a spider or an ant. And not that I don't love you, I just want to love you from afar. Come closer to me. Unless of course you're going to hurt me or you think I'm going to hurt you, then we can honor each other's safe distances and our personal space boundaries. So, animal guides, everybody wants to figure out how they know what guide out there is their animal. And I just, again, just in the spirit of everyday enchantment and ease and fun, let it come to you. Let it unfold in a way that you're not making yourself figure out this animal guide project. Do you have an animal you've always loved in your life? I've always loved manatees. I've loved tigers. Tigers, I was born in the year of a tiger, so it absolutely resonates from that standpoint. But it's just, some animals you get drawn to for a certain period of time, and then maybe they kind of fade into the background and something else comes forward. So there's no right or wrong way to just connect and commune with animals. The only thing I will say is that they have a lot to share with us, right? We share the planet. I know humans think that we rule the planet, but we're absolutely visitors here as well too. And so to me, everything is energy. Everything communicates with everything else. And there's so many animals out there that want to support us as guides. Not everybody feels drawn to them. So maybe you feel drawn to something else. Honor that always above all else. Okay. So I'm going to tell a personal story so you can get a sense of my one of my own kind of iconic spirit guides at this point, because he's very, very well known and he does have a pretty cool story. So I want to share that with you because I didn't go out looking for him. His name is Jack and he's a cardinal, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. So years ago, I ended up in a basement of a woman I didn't really know, having a reading by a medium who lives in the UK. Some of the craziest things happened to me. This is what happens when you're open to enchantment and invitations of all things. You end up calling a woman to ask her about something else, and she invites you to these readings, and then she tells you she's booked and she doesn't have anything, and then she calls you the next day and says, "Oh, yes, you have to come and have this reading with this man." His name was Martin. And anyway, it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning because she's squeezing me in. Again, I do not know this woman. I'm in the basement of her house with this man who, again, I don't know him either. And yet it really did feel safe. If it hadn't felt right, I wouldn't have gone. But again, to me, when I know my intuition really says yes, it's very, very clear. It's not foggy, it's not blurry, and I just go with it. And I just leave the details. Like, I don't need to control them. I don't need to be in charge of everything. So here I am in this basement with this man. We had a beautiful conversation and a reading. The first thing he said is, "Why are you here?" I'm like, um, I don't know, but I know I'm supposed to be here. We end up talking at some point during the reading, and he tells me that I have a guide in my life. His name is Jack. He was a real person, and he died around the time maybe I was born or a little thereafter, but he was in the military, and, um I don't know if he told me anything else, but he basically said, "This guide is here to support you, especially while you're doing the work in the world you're doing," because Martin asked me, he's like, "Do you ever get nervous before you speak to a large crowd or you do something, right, that putting yourself out there?" I was like, "I do." And he said, "You know that feeling of calm you get right before you go on stage or right before you do the thing that scares you the most?" And I said, "I know exactly what you're talking about. There's like this wave of calmness that comes over me." He said, "That's Jack. Jack's energy helping you ground, helping you get into your superpowers so that the nerves don't interfere with whatever it is you're meant to be doing in that moment." So anyway, we meandered through a lot of other topics, which could be several episodes for another podcast. Um, I left there thinking I really wanted to get a sense of like who Jack is and where he is. So I put an intention after that reading and I said, "Okay, Jack, I know you're out there. I know you're supporting me. I want to see you, right, in this earthly plane that we live on. I want to connect with you that way." So I don't know, a couple of weeks went by, and this cardinal was hanging out outside my front house. I have a big tree, and this cardinal was like sitting in the tree waiting for me when I would go outside in the morning to walk the dog. And I was like, huh. And I just noticed it. I didn't think, to be honest with you, anything of it at the time. And then I would go on my walks and this cardinal, different cardinal, obviously, but down on the trail would like dive bomb in front of me, like literally not hit me, but close. This is why I love the universe and all things, whatever spirit guide, love, whatever you want to call it. It's like, yeah, we'll get your attention. So if you're ever worried you're going to miss a sign, you're going to miss a guide, you're not. They're going to dive bomb or some other equivalent right in front of you. So it dawned on me as this cardinal just kept showing up. I was like, "Oh," I said one day, I was like, "Are you Jack?" And I got the most resounding yes all the way through my body. Some people call it like that goosebumps, like, but not just like a little like, "Hey, I gotta chill." Like this was super body, physical confirmation. So after that, then we just started to have fun together. He would wait for me, we would go for these walks. I started to talk to him, he talked back, and we just shared this beautiful relationship. Again, he doesn't know everything. He doesn't decide for me. He doesn't tell me what to do. But the beautiful thing about having guides is a safe place to explore, to know you're being supported for like whatever your highest, expression or good, whatever you want to call that in the spiritual language of such things. I just trusted him in a way that it felt really good because, again, in my life, some of you know, and as you continue to listen to this podcast, not everybody around me was trustworthy. So this is a beautiful thing to be able to kind of melt into this energy and know that I could explore things with Jack and he would listen and be there. It's kind of like having the best imaginary friend, which probably, when you think about it, they're probably not imaginary friends. They're probably our guides. And as adults, we have to, try to explain them in the adult world rather than really realizing that children, especially young children, they don't have that human filter yet. So they do connect and see guides probably much easier than some of us as we've gotten older. And so, anyway, I was very curious because Martin had said to me that this Jack was a person. I wanted to know who he was. And so I asked my one grandmother, both my grandmothers were alive at the time, and I asked my one grandmother because she had been engaged to somebody before my grandfather and he had been in the war and he had passed away. And I was like, oh, it's got to be him. Nope, not him. So I did a little digging and I didn't get anything. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm just not supposed to know. I really practice not indulging my mind to like, why do I need to know? Like, it's not a problem that I don't have all the answers. And if it's meant to be revealed to me, I trust it will be. So this is probably a couple years after that. I mean, and Jack is by my side all the time. My one grandmother did pass away, and I went up to her viewing and her funeral. And interestingly enough, she had this like diary that my mother had bought her, and it was all these questions like, I don't know, your favorite thing to do as a teenager. And it was all these kind of get to know you questions in this journal. And my mother had given it to her, and my grandmother had filled it out. And so I'm just enjoying, like, reading what my grandmother was sharing and answering, and there came to a place, and I don't remember the exact question, but it was something like, "Tell a little bit about your first love," or something like that. So she starts writing about a man that she was in love with, and he didn't love her back in the same way. And so, as much as she really thought he was the one, he did not agree, I guess, with that sentiment. And she ended up marrying my grandfather. Well, interestingly enough, I don't think she said the man's name, but then I had to ask my aunt. So I immediately went over and said to her, "What was the name of this man that grandma loved?" And she said, "Jack," and I can't remember his last name, but well, even if I did, I would keep it in for sake of privacy. His name was Jack, and he was in the military, and he did pass away, not too long after I was born. And so all the pieces lined up in such synchronicity. This is like the heart of everyday enchantment. I'm not making any of this up. I'm not making it happen. I'm not forcing it. It's like when we lean in to the belief that there is, first of all, there is animal guides, that we are all connected, that animals and trees and plants and everything want to be in communion with this human experience we're all having. Well, not the animals, but the humans. You just like that space is where I find the most synchronicity and magic. When I just, again, I don't try to be anything, I just let it unfold. And I get you, this is a practice because it's a practice for me too. So it was so interesting, and then Jack and I had a conversation about that, and it was just the most beautiful thing on the planet to have that connection, and again, it was like a puzzle. It started with the medium, that reading I had, and then another piece, right, where I asked Jack to reveal himself. He chose a cardinal, which I love. My grandmother loved cardinals. They're a special, special bird for her. So just the fact that they're all connect, every little detail, it's like when the universe is just like winking and smiling and like, I say showing off, and I don't mean that from an ego perspective. I just mean that from like the best way that all the ties and knots and tangles can be woven together in the most like loving way possible. So I share this story not because I am a super special and I'm the only one that has an animal guide like this. I share it so that you are inspired to connect with an animal, or maybe there's a person in your life that feels significant. There can be walking live human guides as well as animals and trees and plants and people on the other side. There is no rule book. you feel into what, again, wherever those energies call you, bring you toward, trust that. And let the relationship, just like a human one would, let it evolve over time. So, there's a getting to know you phase, there's questions, there's moments of you're building intimacy. And again, I feel like I have all sorts of guides on this planet. Jack is one of them. He is one of my favorite. Not that I am calling one out over the other, but he is by my side for this lifetime. And so as such, he does hold a very special place. And just just this past weekend, I went to the beach, and it's not a place where you see a lot of cardinals. I really didn't see hardly any. The weather wasn't even that nice. And there, when I walked on the down the boardwalk on the last day as the weather was clearing, right in the cactus plant. Go figure, I don't think of Jack being in the cactuses, but he goes where I go. And I think that when you start to think about working with a guide or connecting, it's also this belief. Again, it feels safe. I feel guided and supported. Using those beliefs will really help you establish that relationship. And again, start small, start slow. If this is like your first foray into this, baby step, and just ask the guides around you to reveal a hint or a clue or something fun about them. And let it always be known that they are here again for you. You always have autonomy and sovereignty and agency. So nothing is going to overtake you or, power over you. That's not how I believe guides work for us. So if anything does feel kind of wonky, then just bless it and thank it and let it keep going on the energetic highway of this planet and all planets. So though that's my Jack story. I know a lot of people, um, ask me about it, so there it is, and I wanna hear about your stories with your guides and your animals and the ways that you've discovered things like I have. I would love for you to drop me a comment, share a story, and yeah, let's connect. I'm always talking about these kinds of things. Jack is always dropping messages through me, and I'm posting them in my Facebook group, Everyday Enchantment. So if that interests you, pop on over and join. And if you want to learn more about how to, again, create these relationships, this is something I do in the School of Magic. I have a whole class and course on animal guides. So if you want to learn, come on over and get a session with me on that particular topic. All right, beautifuls. I hope that you have an incredible rest of your day. And again, tell me all the things. Until next time, I will see you on the flip side of this episode.